Yeah. But I mean, we do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. You're a really fun guy to kind of follow along, I guess. So we're excited to dive into all the many facets that you're involved with. But one thing right off the bat, I just learned about you the other day that I found totally fascinating is that you tied for first in the Sheridan Winter Rodeo. Is it ski joring?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
haven't
yeah,
pronounced that word out loud before, but
yeah.
man, that caught my eye, and I was like, dang, I got to ask him for some advice because we have some interns here, and one of the guys I found out this winter, he went home to do some skiing. He's a nut about skiing, and right about the time he went to go ski, I was looking on my phone and I saw everybody doing that in the winter.
Yeah.
And then when he got home, I was like, hey, Jackson, guess what we're doing next winter? So I don't know, but we're pretty dog determined to come out there and sign up and try somewhere. So I got to
Yeah.
get your take on how that went. I heard that was your first time.
Yeah, yeah. I had the easy job. I had my old head horse that I used, and my buddy Rob, he's a phenomenal skier. And it was the first time they had it here in Sheridan, Wyoming. And so we were in I think the sport division, and then up above us is the pros, and all of us were like, well, we've never done this before. We're not pros. And the sport level was really competitive, and but honestly, like that year on that track, they just had it on one of the streets there in downtown Sheridan, and it was kind of more or less a drag race, who had the fastest horse, and then if your skier could just slalom behind you without spilling. And but yeah, no, I heck, I didn't do anything. I had a fast horse and an awesome skier behind me. So yeah, then they did, the horse and the skier, they did all the work.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't think about it that way. There's got to be some pretty good competitors at that, though, right? I mean, I've seen a few videos where they have flames and jumps and guys are doing flips. And I don't know if that's down in Colorado. I know that. Is it bigger down in Colorado?
Must be. This was that was the well. I guess they had it the second year, but Sheridan's just 15 minutes from where I'm sitting right now, and but I know it's a big sport, and there's you them different places they really get into it, and um, they were having trouble just with the snow on the street, so now they have it at the fairgrounds, and I didn't make it last year, and now there's a curve on the track and different things, so you actually do got to ride your horse, and depending on where you go, there is some horsemanship, because you got to ride your horse and hit some curves and whatnot, so then there's a lot more team dynamic with the horse and skier. You can't just go all out. You got to check up sometimes, so your skier is able to combat physics a little bit and whatnot. And but yeah, no, it's there's some, I've seen some videos where it looks pretty cool, and like you said, there's jumps and rings of fire and some hardcore stuff.
So, did y'all practice for something like that, or you just kind of get there the day of and get a feel for it?
Yeah, that Rob right behind his house, he's got a hayfield, and so he just grabbed his bobcat and kind of built a practice track, and we just kind of it was a lot of fun because it was the first time, and just kind of everyone in Sheridan County is just like, hey guys, I'm going to practice. None of us have done it, and we were all in it for the fun of it. It was something to do in the wintertime other than feed cows, and um, it was good fun. And so there's a couple snow machines there, so the skiers could get reps, and that way you're not just smoking your horses. And so everyone kind of was getting a feel for it on the snow machines. And then towards the end, we had our horses warmed up and made a few runs. And um, the biggest difference that the skiers said is the horse takeoff is a lot more abrupt. On them snow machines, it's kind of a little more gradual, and they might spin out at first, but a horse can just go from zero to full blast in a matter of strides. So there's a lot more whiplash, and so that was where they could focus on their grip and how they need to hold it, and if they need to slide a little rope when they first take off or what. And but no, so yeah, we did practice a little bit, and it was good fun, and they had a fire pit there, and kind of barbecuing, and it was kind of, that was almost more fun than the event itself, just because, just your friends, and if you need to grab something, you could. And because, man, it was super cool though, the first year they did it, just because seeing that many people in Sheridan. And but it was just so crowded. If you need to go find a restroom or find a Gatorade or a snack or something, like, it was packed. But no, it was good fun.
Wow.
That's awesome.
You have to put something on your horse's feet special for that?
I did. I know some people ran barefoot, and I think honestly there, the snow, the way the snow was so soft, I think a guy would have been fine barefoot. But I had mine sharp shod. They had pads and some borium tacked on there, and but just like a lot of places, the footing depends. Where this was kind of fake ground, they had hauled in a bunch of snow, and um, it was, and it was warm that day too, and so that snow was kind of wanting to melt and get soft. And but I think dang sure, putting snowball pads and and some type of extra footing, whether you're frost nails or putting borium on, something, I think it dang sure helps. And but
Yeah.
then booting your horses is the other thing too, making sure they're protected from themselves, they're not overreaching and going to harm themselves too.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, yeah, that sounds like a blast. One of the things I really want to talk to you about, there's so many things to cover, and we'll get through it, I guess, in 90 minutes or so. But this afternoon, I was already pretty excited to meet you when Joe told me that he contacted you and you were coming on. But then this afternoon, after I rode a couple horses, I went and took about an hour and I watched that documentary that you did with Ian.
Yeah,
and that is so cool. I remember when it came out, but and it's like listening to podcasts. It's not always easy to take time and go watch something. And so I just sat down, I rented it, watched it all the way through. And man, I have so much more just respect for you as a person without even meeting you yet. And I guess where I'd really like to start is I'd love to, hear more about where you're from in your culture, because that's what that documentary really shed a light on for me, was just a way of life and a really cool environment to grow up in that it seems to me can create all different kinds of people. And I know everybody has that, no matter where you grow up. There's opportunity to become, whatever you dream of being. But it seems like where you're from and your culture, it inspires you to dream quite a bit. And there's a lot of deep and old stories that are passed along, and beautiful scenery, and the animals and the land. And man, that documentary, I could watch that a few times and not get sick of it. So could you I'd love to hear a little bit more about, just where you're at, where you guys are located, and how you grew up, how you saw yourself, I guess, as a kid, if you imagined turning into this cowboy that everybody wants to get to know him.
Yeah. So we're here in southern Montana on the Crow Indian Reservation, little town called Wyola. The two closest towns that someone would recognize are Billings, Montana, which is about a hour 15 northwest of us, and then Sheridan, Wyoming, is the other town that's probably 30 minutes from the ranch, and to the south of us. And but no, we grew up there, and I guess one thing kind of unique to our family, is we're Native American, and so like our people and our ancestors, like, we've been here forever, and since man was created, we've been here. And so that's one of the things that I'm proud of. And is that I'm getting to make a living on the ranch that's been in my family or my people's, native ground for centuries. Um, Back in the early 1900s, there was a snowstorm. I can't remember what year it was exactly, but there was a snowstorm, and the big neighbor ranch, they kind of just told everyone in the valley, like, hey, if you guys find a calf, you guys can keep it, because that storm was so bad, then cows were going down in the river bottoms to kind of hide out in the trees. And that storm had lasted so long, and that cows were starting to abandon their calves, just for their own survival. Like, I got to go find something to eat. I can't take care of this calf. And it was a tragic time. I mean, there was a lot of animals that were lost to the conditions. And I think our family there on the river bottom, they found a couple heifer calves, or, 2 or 3 or 4. And so anyways, back in them days, that's when everyone had a garden and a milk cow and pigs and chickens. And so anyways, they put them calves on the milk cow, and that's kind of how our family got started in the cattle business, close to 100 years ago. And, from there we've grown and grown. And, I'm the 4th generation now and hoping to be the 5th. And just kind of how, and you can learn this stuff, in your ag classes whenever, learning about soil health and ecosystems. But that was just something that natives were taught early on, like everything around us is sacred, and take what you need, and nothing more. And when you're hunting to feed your family and you do take the life of a deer or an elk, like that was a blessing, and that elk gave its body to help your family live. And it's just kind of how I think, and how a lot of people around us think, is I absolutely love horses, and every good thing in my life has come from them. And on these long days, this horse, he's busting his butt to get these cows gathered up. Or when it is time to sell a horse, this horse is us selling that money. It's used to go buy diapers and groceries and, things we need. Same thing with the cows. We spend our entire life, day to day, giving these cattle the absolute best life that we possibly can, knowing that they're going to return it to us, and if we raise a big healthy calf, we're going to reap the benefits from it. And so just paying the respect to the animals, and not just our livestock, but to everything around us as well, because they're important to the ecosystem. And and also too, paying attention to them type of things. Everyone, Farmer's Almanac, from my recollection, every year the Farmer's Almanac says we're going to have a hard winter. And until last year is the first time when they're really right. But before I had heard any of that, all the hunters were saying really early in the fall, they said the deer and the elk, their fat stores are really heavy and thick. Like, they're already bulking up. And so like that, Mother Nature was telling us, like, hey, this winter's going to be a tough one. Like, and there's different things if you get in tune to it, all around us, and there's signs that you can read, and that'll help you in day-to-day life and let you know what's going on.
Yeah, you mentioned, your family haven't been there forever. That's one of the things that caught me off guard and was really interesting to me is how that documentary you guys made talked about how the Indian kind of was the first cowboy, and how, history's got it so backwards in what we see in cinema for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
or read in old books, or like what's been written down. But that, your people have been taking care of the land and the animals and raising horses way before the cowboys were doing that. And it's really the same, maybe you're wearing a little bit different clothing or have a little bit different looking house, but you're essentially carrying out the same tasks and probably doing a better job even of caring for the land. But it's just not something that as an American, and I even come from a different kind of upbringing. Like my family traveled around growing up a lot. So even so many things, the way you were raised are different to me, not just different people and different culture, but just having that sense of belonging. Like my great, 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 great grandfather, lived here on this land or lived near here and did what I'm doing. That's gotta be pretty cool. As a kid growing up, did you have, was it hard to understand other kids sometimes because you probably had stories in history that was passed down to you that was kind of completely contrary to what maybe some rancher's kid down the road heard? Or were you guys pretty similar? Is there not as much difference as I think there would be?
um, it's pretty similar because this is crow country here where we're at, and a lot of the non-native people know quite a bit of the history because this is a pretty good community where I'm at. These two neighboring counties, everyone gets along. But one thing, kind of, I when I got older, and kind of learning history or just talking to people and hearing their accounts that they had read from a book about Native American history, and then like, what? That's not what happened. That's not true, because I had heard it from just it being passed down all around us, and the story come from someone who was actually there. You know what I mean? And not from some historian at a university or something that was doing a paper on it, and this is what he published, and now that's accepted as what actually happened. And so there are different things like that. And but I guess that's one thing that's just helped me in life overall is just things with perspective. um, Being born on the reservation, but we went to school off the reservation just 20 miles to the south. And so it was still a ranch and farm community, but there was only, through the whole kindergarten through 12th grade, maybe 20 native students. And so you hear people talk about the Indian reservation and what they think of it, and I'm like, oh, it's not like that. Like, I'm a little kid and I feel perfectly safe there.
Mm-hmm.
And where your parents are, oh, that's a dangerous place, and but and then just how natives would talk about the work, because it is different. I mean, but just people's perspective, and I got to see a little bit of both from growing up on a reservation, and but then living life off of it too, going to college and going to school, and and then getting to look from the outside back in. And so just kind of that understanding of there's two sides, at least two sides to every story, and just kind of something a guy can apply to every day in different scenarios.
Hmm. Well, you touched on something there that made me have another thought, and that is, like, even if you watch a show like Longmire, or like I lived in Montana for a while near Big Sandy, there in the Bear Paws mountain range, and we were right next to I believe it was a Chippewa Cree reservation, and there was parts of that reservation that were kind of skanky. I mean, and you had the people had the rhetoric, like locals make jokes and stuff. Watching your documentary, the reservation you grew up on looked like a haven. It looked beautiful. I was like, dang, I wish I was born into that. I mean, it looked beautiful. So is there the same? I mean, just like cities in America, right? Like you could be born in the South Side of Chicago or Detroit, or you could be born, in Palm Springs or Beverly Hills or Louisiana or, West Virginia at a coal mine. Like there's so many different kinds of neighborhoods, and you can't sum them all up in one definition. So are there different reservations where some areas are altogether more bleak? And then like the one you grew up on, is that accurate? It looked like a haven to me. It looked beautiful, just like ranch land, big grassy valley.
The town itself of Wyola and Lodgegrass, they're nothing to brag about, and they're pretty rough towns. And at one point, they were beautiful towns, but stuff's just kind of been let go, and
Mm-hmm.
things have kind of got run down. But as far as you get out of town limits, like it's a cattleman's paradise, just where we're at. It really is some of the best grass country, and whether in the state of Montana or in the country, if you're running cows. And not this past year, but the years before that, we were in a 2-year drought, and the numbers across the country are pretty low. Everyone's been in a drought, and um, here in southern Montana on the reservation, it was dry. It was dang sure dry, but we were far better off than a lot of people. I mean, it was just kind of almost its own little oasis. And those of us in the area, were still doing okay. A lot of springs dried up, and you didn't have the water like you usually did. And one more year of it, and we'd have been hurting bad, but we survived it okay. And then last year we just had such a super wet year. When the snow came, the grass was still green, which and tall, which is unheard of. You get into your summer months and everything starts to turn and get yellow and brown. But it was just and that was a unique year, the year of 23. And but it's a beautiful place, and it's just somewhere I never want to leave. We're right there at the foot of the Bighorns and on the Little Bighorn River, and I'm very, very blessed to call it home.
Did you always have that sentiment, or when you were, towards the end of high school, going to college, did you always know you were going to go back and become that fourth generation, or did you have thoughts of maybe going out and, even if it wasn't permanent, setting up shop somewhere else for a while?
Yeah. To tell you the truth, I really didn't want to go to college, and my parents kind of forced me. And but I kind of figured, like, well, I'll go to college, I'll get my degree, and I'll go work and save up some money, and then come back to ranching. And then when I start, and wanting to build my own herd or do whatever, I've got a little money saved up instead of just having absolutely nothing to my name. And so I went to the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology in Rapid City, South Dakota, and actually played basketball there. They're a Division II school, and then played 3 years of basketball, and then I just kind of got burnt out on the sport, and it just got to where I felt like I wasn't getting out of it what I was putting into it. And it was a really tough decision to make, because your teammates, they're my brothers, and the stuff we went through together on the court and in the weight room and practice. And but stepped away. And anyways, I graduated in 2017 with a bachelor's in science and industrial engineering and engineering management. But it was like my junior year. It was spring semester, and my phone's going off. Hey, we're going to brand this weekend. Hey, we're here. And it's like, oh no, I've got practice, or, like, I know I'm in school. I won't make it. I won't make it. And I remember I'm in a lecture in a great big auditorium, and like looking up, and just them real long fluorescent lights above me is kind of flickering and buzzing. And I was like, I can't do this indoor stuff. Like, the grass is green, the sun's out, the birds are chirping, and I'm stuck inside this building. And I was just like, I don't want to spend the rest of my life inside another building, no matter how much money it's going to make, or how much money it's going to pay. And so I finished college strong. I finished with a 3.0 B average, and took a couple years for myself. When I got out, I started going down to Wickenburg, Arizona, and was roping and training rope horses down there. First year out of college, I went and worked for Frenchman's Quarter Horses in Hot Springs, South Dakota, and was training horses for them. And then, and same deal in the wintertime, go south, and then eventually come home and kind of did some thinking and decided like, well, no better time like the present. And so kind of started getting some papers put together and whatnot, and went to the bank and applied for an ag loan and got it, and been going ever since.
Wow, that's awesome.
It sounds like you may have told the story of your life's journey so far a few times. So we're going to try to keep diverting you from how you normally tell. But one thing that popped up I want to ask you, I feel like you'd be a good person to comment on this, is the exact thing that happened to you. You said your parents told you to go to college, and you were like, yeah, that could be a good idea. I'll save up some money, and then I'll be able to buy a place. And a lot of kids getting into ranching that don't have like a family ranch being passed down to them or have a bunch of money. That's what a lot of people will tell them is get a job, go to college, get a good job, and then swing back around and then come back to the ranching. And then some people will say, go right into it, work from the bottom up and just figure it out and focus on what it is that you love and want to do. So yourself, if you had a 20-year-old kid right now who didn't have anything to his name and was asking you for advice, which way would you point him?
I would tell him to, I mean, because like I didn't, it's not like my dad said, here's your cows here, like he's kind of getting older and kind of getting burnt out. And so his herd numbers are dropping, and he's not wanting to run as many cows as he used to. So his numbers get to a point and he's like, well, I don't need this lease anymore. So then I'd pick up that lease, and then I'd go and say, hey, I've got grass for this many cows, whatever. But I don't know, what I did is kind of diversified. I've got the cows, but try and find another skill you have that you can make money with, whether it is, get a part-time town job doing whatever, or shoeing horses or training horses. For me, just horses are something I loved from early on, and started riding and training them when I was pretty young, and something that I'm still working on. But all my eggs aren't in one basket. We got the cows, but you never know what the market's going to do. But, we always have a horse that's for sale. There's always one that, okay, we'll sell that, and that'll maybe help cover some of the mineral costs on the cows. We do a lot of different things, so we're getting different income from stuff. Now, the last couple of years, it's really helped, getting into the movies and whatnot, and getting to do stunts, and that's been a huge help. And I know that's not realistic for everyone to be able to just like, oh, I'm going to go work on movies. But, like I don't think there's nothing wrong with ranching. Ain't going anywhere. Horses and cows aren't going anywhere. They'll be there if you want to step away. And like, I've got a lot of friends that they go to the oil field. They'll go work in the oil field for a year and they earn it. North Dakota is no fun place, and it's dirty cold in the winter, but they'll go there and make a pile of money for a year. Then they'll head back to Nevada or, where Idaho or whatever, and go cowboy. But, I guess, that's kind of my advice would be just try and diversify yourself so you're not just reliant on one source of income. So if it ever goes away, your back's not pinned against the wall.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a pretty well-rounded piece of advice. Yeah. Yeah, no, we've talked to a few people that do that, and I have some friends that certainly diversify and do different things to kind of make ends meet. But that's always, you see that in people that want to get into this, that look on their face where they're trying to figure out how they're going to do it, and because it's not easy. But I do agree with you that ranching's not going anywhere. And also the amount of people that don't want to work anymore. Everyone's looking for good help. Shoot, you go on Ranch World Ads, you put a listing on there, and it's on the page 2 by tomorrow because everybody's posted wanted ads on there. Yeah. There's it's like the less people that want to work, and people are always going to eat beef, and I don't think they're going to successfully build it in petri dishes. So there's always going to be a market for it, but then you still got to beat out the guys that want a big house with a pretty view, and they got the jingle to do it. So
Yeah,
there is that. That's going to be consistent, I think, as time goes on.
absolutely. And kind of like comment that you made here a second ago, and that was one thing that one of my good friends was the piece of advice his uncle had given him uh, when he kind of went out on his own, and but he said, like, if you want to be self-employed, as long as you're willing to work, you'll never starve. And you might not get rich, but if you're willing to, okay, it's 3 o'clock, I could be done for the day, but this needs paid, and someone called needs a horse shod. If you're willing to, okay, yep, I'll grab my tools, I'll be on my way. Or whatever it is, whatever your side hustle is, and that is the important thing. Like, if you want to be successful and ranching and you're starting from ground zero, like, you got to be able to put in the work and are willing to put in the work and put in the hours. Because even for me, growing up around it my whole life, when I got in the driver's seat and got my own herd of cows, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't account for, that you're not going to experience unless you're the one calling the shots or you're the ones writing the checks. And but now we're, what are we, 5 years into it now, and kind of getting in a rhythm, and kind of know the stuff that, like, okay, this expense is me coming up here, sneaks up on us every year, but I'm going to be ready this time, or different things, and just trying to be as well prepared as we can for whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it at least seems like the perspective you have, Stephen, which I think is really healthy and kind of sets people up for success. I've known some guys that, like, they want to be a rancher or cattleman or whatever, and like you said, they're not willing to have that side hustle. They're like, it's going to be cattle. Cattle are going to pay for everything, and they're just going to do that from the very beginning. And a lot of times, they either don't work hard enough to make that happen, or they're just in a situation where they're going to get way over leveraged. And so it's like, yeah, obviously you want your cattle to make money. You want to be able to make money with the cattle. But in the beginning, if you're going to ranch, I don't know, to me, it feels like it's a lifestyle. And like, I want to live that life. And even if I have this cow herd where it's not profitable right now, I'd like to build it to something, even if that means I got to ride colts or shoe horses or build fence or do whatever. But it's like working towards that lifestyle, as opposed to maybe some people view it as like a business goal, right? And if you try to do that from the very beginning, I just see a lot of people biting off more than they can chew on the cow side and falling short.
Oh yeah, and that was something that I kind of early on thought about. I was like, here's my ultimate goal, is running these cows and having our own place, but I know it's not going to happen overnight, and we're going to have obstacles, but also too, I need to be able to kind of take one for the team. I know, make, like, taking an out, we're going to have to do a month of taking outside horses, or do for a couple of years taking outside horses to help cover some costs for things. I'm going to have to take a year to, doing whatever. I'm going to have to grind some things out. It's not ideal, but I'm working towards my ultimate goal. That's what we're getting at. And we're going to have to make some sacrifices. And some of them sacrifices are working at other things, but knowing that, okay, but it's going to help towards getting it all paid off, and just like right now, my fiance, she's in school to be an NP, and it's been tough. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I haven't been able to get done at the ranch because she's got clinicals or she's got work, and I got to go home and pick up the boys from daycare. And I could get after her and say, hey, no, I'm running the ranch. You need to take school off or whatever. But she's got her hopes and dreams too, just like I do. And that's not fair for me to say, put all yours on hold for me. but also when she graduates and becomes a nurse practitioner, that's more money that'll help out with our day-to-day stuff, and it'll just set us up better for success. And so, not getting to day work as much, not getting time on my horses like I want to, but that's just one of the sacrifices. Like, it's one of the bumps in the road, but it's going to benefit us in the long run. And so being able to see that and navigate through it to make it to where, we're all still happy getting along and supporting one another, and
Yeah. Well, on that end, it's so Ben got married in January, and I'm engaged and getting married in September, and we're probably, I would imagine, like, we're having similar conversations you're talking about with your fiance, and it seems to me like the biggest thing there is you guys are, once you both know the direction you're pulling, it seems, for me personally, it feels really easy to make those sacrifices, right? Because it's like, oh, well, I'll do this for her, but I know she's pulling in the same direction I'm pulling, and like, this is what we want. And honestly, that is another thing that I've seen, as far as like the wanting the ranch and wanting to be a cowboy and do all this stuff. Not finding a significant other that pulls in the same direction as you I've seen that be the downfall of a lot of guys.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, definitely. And, kind of circling back to you talking about why people, like, there's some people that just like, I wanted to be a rancher because I love what I do. I love what I get to do. I love where I live. There's some people that want to do it just so they can say, like, look at me, I'm the boss. I'm a cowboy. And I don't know. You see a lot of, they get passed around, or no one wants to work for them, or, whatever. And just like any job, I think you got to like what you do and love what you do. And one of the big reasons why I love what I do also is like the community. And like where I live, just it's everyone's so neighborly and willing to help, because they're struggling too. When I call my name, last winter, just about every day I got stuck, all four tires chained up. We had so much snow, and my neighbors would drive by, and without even having to call them, they just swoop in, chain up, pull me out, because they know the day before, I had to do it with them. And we're all in the same thing together. So being willing to help each other. And me and a buddy were talking about this the other day. Some of the best bosses we've been around or worked for were guys that didn't want to be a boss. Just whatever happened, they got bumped into that position, and they're some of the best guys. And some of the worst bosses we've had or been around were the guys that's all they care about. All they care about is, I want to be a manager. I want to be a boss. I want to be a boss. And they don't give a dang about people around them. It's always all about them and putting on that show, and that, like, I'm the cow boss, I'm the JB, you go here, you go there. And, the best bosses I've been around is, they're guys that talk to their crew and like, I don't know, what do you guys think we should do? Do you think that makes sense if we circle around them and pin them this way? Or do you think we ought to scatter what do you guys think? And I'm just lucky to be around them type of guys and see that. And that's kind of one of the beauties of being a day worker too, is it's like, I don't like you. I don't like working for you. I'll sit tomorrow out and go help the other ranch, or I'll go fix some fence at our place and help these guys later on, whatever. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's something too. Like when Joe was talking about, like I'm married and he's getting married, and I don't know how old you are, Stephen.
30.
You're 30. Yeah. So you're just a tad older than I'm 27, 28, and you're 30.
Okay.
So it's interesting how, like I think two podcasts back, Joe was talking about how this year he's trying to have fun at how he does things, and not like in a trivial way, but just enjoy the process more. And we were talking about that with one of our guests, and because we're talking about all these goals, you want to do all these things, and you're trying to make it all happen. But even, then you get married, or then whatever it is, whatever the next milestone is in your life, typically it adds more responsibility to your life. It doesn't take responsibility away. So in a way, you could continually get more and more stressed out. But something I heard recently, I don't know if you know who Chris Williamson is, but he said something that I thought was pretty cool. He said, the things that you said would make you happy, you've already accomplished. I was like, wow, that's really cool. And so it's like, like you get married because you figure that's going to have some fulfillment, hopefully. So, once you're married, well, now you have to remember that, be happy about it. Or, if you said you wanted to be a cowboy, now you're a cowboy. So got to be happy about it, even if it sucks. And even if you're working the 3 jobs to get the ranch. And so that was something else. Just watching that documentary you guys did, you were talking about how your culture is all about, helping each other. And it's not about material possessions. Like you won't get more joy the more stuff you have. You get more joy the more you help others. And it just made me think of all of those things, how it can be really tough to just have a good day. I mean, even like a good boss or be working on a good crew, just good things aren't easy to just have. You have to have examples. You have to have reasons to be happy. And so even along the journey of like, getting your own ranch, all along that journey, there's a lot of hard stuff. But as you accomplish each thing, I mean, you thought that was going to make you happy. So once you get there and you pass it and it happens, you should dwell on that, think about that, be excited for that. And so the more responsibility you have, it's more work, but it's also exciting too. And you're going somewhere. But so a minute ago, you touched on riding for I think it was Frenchman's outfit. The first time I ever saw you, you were on, I think it was that show, the Ultimate Cowboy Showdown or something, but you stood out a lot. I think you were riding, was it a black mare or a black gelding in the bridle?
I had 2 geld. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. You were riding that horse in the bridle. And I mean, that kind of stood out because wasn't really any other bridles in that show. And, so clearly you value horsemanship quite a bit. And so where did that come into play for you? Were you raised around like that style of horsemanship with slick fork saddles and bridle bits and stuff like that? Or did you pick that up kind of along your journey?
So I grew up with a 30-foot, 3/8 scant king rope and rubber on the horn. And, but so there's 2 big ranches that we neighbor on both sides of us, the Sunlight Ranch and Padlock. And I'm really, really fortunate to have them actually as our neighbors because they've brought in so many good cowboys that I've got to learn from. And I just, my family, that's how Dad and them grew up, was just a 30-foot rope and roping on rubber. And so that's how I was raised. And then as I got older, my friends were like, Steve, try rope and slick. And little hesitant at first because just you hear all the different things like, oh, get a faster horse if you need that money, different things. And so, but I'm open-minded enough, and so I did it. And and just from them explaining the benefits of a longer rope and a slick horn and what you can do and how much more control you have, then I was like, yeah, absolutely, this makes way more sense for what I do and the horses I'm riding. This just makes way more sense. And so I was in my early 20s when I started roping on a slick horn, and then getting to where my horse goals was, instead of like in Sheridan County, everyone's goal is just, I want to make it a head horse. It was, I want to make him a bridle horse. I want to get him broke enough that I can ride him in a silver bit and a set of ramels and keep him in the middle and go get any job done, and so just being around them type of guys, it just really pushed my horsemanship. And, because now I had a new goal, I had something to strive for. And, not that I ever thought I was great, but like I was selling horses, and was doing really good on them, but I was like, okay, here's a new challenge. I want to get my horse in a bridle bit. And so just started working on different things and being around different guys and like learning's fun. Like I love it. And um, like here next month, me and three of my buddies that I'm with every day, we're going to Dyer to Nick Dower's clinic.
Oh,
And
great.
yeah. I mean, we're just excited. We just kind of all feel we're all around the same age and kind of feeling a little stagnant. And it's like, all right, we need something to push us. And so going there, and so we're super excited to go ride with him for 3 days and learn from him at his deals. But it's just learning new things is fun, and like there's always them heated debates on between like your buckaroo types and the punchers, slick horn or
Yeah.
tied off and different things. And like to me, like I never participate because I could care less. But like that stuff's a tool. Your rope is a tool. Your saddle is a tool, and you can cut a tree down with an axe. You can cut it down with a handsaw, or you can cut it down with a chainsaw, or they're all tools, but if you know how to use them in different scenarios, they make your job easier. And that's the point of it is to get your job done. My job for right now is to rope this yearling and get it doctored. If I've never tied off before, I'm probably not going to. But, I have some friends from Texas that come up and we're doctoring stuff and they're tied off hard and fast. And I don't care. They
Yeah.
know how to do it correctly. They know how to keep themselves safe, keep me safe, and handle the cows. When I go to other places and everyone's rubbered up, no one gives me crap because I've got a 45 footer. They're like, Steve knows how to rope. He knows how to get short. He knows how to stay in control. And so that's the thing. Like, it don't matter what the tool is. It's, who's swinging it, who's the guy. And, good hands are good hands. And, just in my travels the last few years, get to meet different people from all over. And you get in the bar and you get them guys on the booze and they're telling how Northerners can't get it done, and that's why all this and that.
Yeah.
But like, you can take a good hand from up north and take them down there, and they'll do just fine. You can take a hand from down there and bring them up here, and I mean, just in my travels, like there's way more similarities than differences. Just because your saddle's different, your leggings are different, your hat shape different, you're still trying to pen them cows, strip off the cows, and load them calves on the truck and get them weaned. Just
Yeah.
like we do. You know what I mean? It's like we're all trying to do the same thing. And so I don't know, a lot of them conversations, they annoy me.
Yeah.
With the wrong people, because you just get them blowhards from either part of the world or country that there's no change in their mind. And them guys are no good and they're sorry and they're dumb and blah blah. And it's like, cool, man. Well, have a nice day. And but
Yeah.
it's fun. Like I go down there, like from the movies, become friends with a lot of them guys from the 4-6s, and we went down to the Remuda sale last year and hung out with the sixes guys. And the second night we went to the Tongue River Ranch and hung out with them guys and just had some cool conversations and just like they want to come up and head heel, and like they're all about it, and Steve, what is the point of a long rope, and explaining it to them and different things are like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I just got on TikTok and says, oh, that's why, and everyone makes fun of them. So I just thought it was dumb and or whatever. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people get their info. And, and that's the other thing too. If you've never left the state of Montana, you're going to think Montana has the best cowboys, hands down, no argument. And you get around, like you'll see, like there's good cowboys everywhere you go, and there's also not very good ones. And just I haven't got to bounce around a whole lot, but just from what little I have, it's pretty much the same. Like you go to a place and man, that guy, he is handy. Like makes good horses, ropes good stockman. That guy ropes really good, horrible cowboy. that guy, great cowboy, terrible horseman. That kid is super green, but he's trying. He's in a couple years, he's going to be really good. He's asking the right questions. He works hard. That guy, he's only in it for likes on social media. That kid there is just idiot. I mean, there's them guys it's everywhere you go. There's some really good hands and people who are doing it for the right reasons, and some who are just doing it for fun or whatever. And but it's been fun. Like I was just down in Amarillo in the Panhandle right before the fires, and went and day worked there at the LX just north of Amarillo, and we were weaning that day, and then we pregged them cows, and the handful of the guys went with the calves and processed them. But it was just cool to get to BS and talk to them guys down there. And one thing that's really cool about there in Texas from where I'm at is there's a lot of the older generation who are still riding, still roping, still woofy.
Mm-hmm.
Where like up here where I'm at, it's a really young generation anymore. The last few years, like the people who are like my parents' age, they kind of got burnt out, and they're still there. But here, Steve, you run the branding, and they're buzzing around on the side by side, just kind of watching. But they're not playing like they used to, and which is a bummer because there are some good hands up here, but just for whatever reason. But it was cool to go down there when you're in Texas, and there's guys in their 60s, 70s still have a rope in their hand, and still, I mean, just cutting a cow in two when you're stripping calves, and it's just cool to see, that see them cowboys down there that are still doing it, them old hands that can still get it done.
Huh. Steve, why do you think that is? What do you think the difference is between the different localities?
I don't know. I thought about that too, because I flew down there and then drove back up and was, thinking, and I guess I don't know why.
My thought would be maybe weather. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe when you get a little bit older, you hit one good winter, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to not ride. This January. Next year, it's like I'm not going to ride this December, January, and February. We're down south. Maybe you don't have as much of a break. I don't know. That'd be one thought.
And I don't know if it's like, I know a lot of people up here are selling out. And I don't know about the rest of Montana. I'm just kind of talking for here on the reservation.
Yeah, there's some old guy out there on his horse right now listening to this, and he's like, hey, gosh darn it, and I'm going to have to go find Steven and tell him that I still ride my horse.
Yeah. And I'm not saying there aren't, but I mean, they're just not as many as there used to, and I know it dang sure, just like with inflation, it's kicking everyone's butt, I mean, just price of diesel to put in your tractor to go, or in your swather to go cut hay, and then put it up, and then to put in your bale bed pickup to go unroll it, just everything's going up. And I don't know if that's why you got man, why keep torturing myself when I can just sell this for millions of dollars to this rich guy over here, and I can go get a townhouse, or I don't have the answer to that. I don't know why. And I asked my dad the other day, I was like, do you want to get horseback again? And he said, no, I don't care to ever sit on a horse ever again. And, didn't ask him why. I just said, all right. But I don't know. I'll get him horseback again. You watch, I'll get him.
Yeah, man, if things get bad enough, it might be time for us to hook up our manure spreaders and head down to the state capitals pretty soon. Have you been following what's going on in Europe?
I have.
Those guys are wild. The European farmers are protesting. I don't know all the particulars. I know it has to do with different kind of laws about what foods you can sell and tariffs on their grain and just a lot of restrictions, And but yeah, they're going right downtown. They spread manure and dirt down the main streets in Paris, and then ran a cedar, planted wheat right in the middle of the road. They covered the front of Buckingham Palace with manure. I couldn't believe it. We went on our honeymoon just a month and a half ago, and we stood right there in front of Buckingham Palace. And I saw it on my phone this morning. They had 4 guys with manure spreaders backed up to that sucker, and they were spraying it right over the gate, right into the courtyard, and they had it piled up halfway up the wall. They had old rubber tires and all kind of stuff piled up, and it's all across Europe, the Netherlands, France, Italy. I mean, they're taking them over.
Man, they got them Dutch farmers pissed off.
Yes,
they took the combines and just blocked like major highways and just sat there for like 48 hours, and no one got in or out of the city. Those
are the descendants of the Americans that were supposed to be over here back when we started America. But we might get them yet, or we might have to go move back there and help them. But either way, they're just kind of at that point. Right now you hear the grumblings here about how it's kind of tough, but I think they're at that point where they're like, you know what, it's not kind of tough, it's impossible. And they're at the point where you either have to sell and go buy a house in town, or, John and Billy, we're hooking up the manure spreader and we're going to go clean windows down at the state capitol with, cow manure. So kudos to them. That'll be wild to see how that unfolds, but I don't think we're there yet here, but you hear that, you hear that a lot. Everyone's kind of like, handwriting's on the wall, but
no, exactly.
Yeah.
So you kind of alluded to it a little bit. I'd love to hear more about kind of what you've been doing with the movies, Stephen, because until we visited the other day to set up this time, I knew about you from the Ultimate Cowboy Show, but I didn't realize you had you gotten to be part of like Bass Reaves and we're doing some stunt work. Can you tell us like how that kind of came about and what that's been like for you?
Yeah. So I went and did that Cowboy Showdown. I can't remember what year that was, 21 maybe, or 20. I think it was 20. Was that when COVID hit?
That was the COVID year.
I think that's when we watched it. We were hurting for stuff to watch. So,
because it would have been the following spring is when it come out. Because it was in the fall of 20 we filmed it. It was Halloween Day when we all shook hands and met for the first time there and met Trace Adkins, and then filmed for like 20 days in November. And then I come home and was home for a few days, and my friend Martin Sensmeyer called me, and he's an actor. He's who played Sam on 1883. And he was a good friend of my sister's and my sister Beth, and just he and I have they were roommates in LA. They had an apartment together, and Martin was kind of just getting his big break, and my sister, she was a fashion designer and starting her company up, and so both of them were kind of young and just grinding things out and just kind of starting to get their break. And anyways, just Martin being the good guy that he is, like several years before that, he had been trying to get me to double him because we're similar height, similar build. And so anyways, he called and he said, "Hey, Steve, 1883. And I talked to production for you to stunt double me. You should come do it." And it was a good time of year where our cows were still out on grass. And I talked to Chelsea and she's like, "Yeah, go ahead, go do it." And so went down there. And so, it was like the month of December, or part of November, and then December, and then into January was down there. When we first started, we were in the Panhandle, filming on the Dixon Creek unit of the 4.6s, northeast of Amarillo. And then we went to Guthrie and did some filming down there. And so I got to stunt double Martin, and it was cool. Like to every day see Sam Elliott, Tim McGraw, Faith, see all them guys, and to see, it turned out to be one of the biggest shows on television, but to be there and see what goes into it and the logistics and all the moving parts. And so that was an awesome experience. And then just kind of from my experience anyways, that movie world, it's kind of, not what you know, who you know type of deal. And then once you're in, you're kind of in. And, there's kind of the catch 22 with the movie deals. It's like, hey man, I'd like to, okay, we'll get your SAG card and then we can hire you to work on a movie. Okay, well, how do I get my SAG card? You got to work on a movie. And so it's like, how do I get in? But, like that, I just lucked out and had a good close family friend who was looking out. And so once I got that, then got my SAG card, then you meet the other stuntmen and the stunt coordinators, and it is a job. And when I come home, everyone's like, "Oh, Hollywood, oh, are you gonna start acting?" It's like, no, that's not how it works. Like, them actors, that's their job, and they work at it and went to school. Like, it's not just like, oh, you're Indian, you have long hair, we'll this role for the lead role for this guy on this. It's like, it's not how it works. But just for me, luckily, like with Taylor Sheridan, he really likes the period pieces. So there's a lot of horses, and I grew up riding them. And so then they did Bass Reeves, and they had a scene. It was one of the opening scenes of the series, actually, when they kind of do a flashback to Bass when he was still a slave. I can't remember what the name of the battle was, but Civil War, and there was 50 Cherokee riders charging down the hill that attacked the Union, and there was 50 of us natives on that deal. And I'm new to the film industry, but Danny Edmo, who's been kind of the guy who's really helped me and gotten me, he's the one who hired me on that. But he was saying, guys, this is a really cool opportunity because this is like the first time that it's all Native American stuntmen on native owned horses. He said in a lot of these movies, there'll be a handful of natives, but then the rest of them are non-native actors that they paint up and make them look Indian. Where this time we were all natives. Most of them were Blackfeet, and I think I was the only Crow and guy, but mainly Blackfeet. And there are a couple Northern Cheyenne and Lakota guys, and a couple guys from Arizona who had been in the movie world, and so it was cool, and to get to do that. And then it was a lady who I had known I had met when I was in Arizona. She was friends with the wife of the stunt coordinator for Horizon, the new Kevin Costner movie that's coming out, I think this summer. The first two parts are coming out. Anyways, she's like, "Hey, Steven, my friend, her husband's the stunt coordinator. They're looking for natives for this Kevin Costner movie. Here's her email. Reach out to her." And like, they're looking for guys right now. And so I was like, well, all right. So emailed that lady, and so anyway, she connected me with her husband, and so got onto Horizon, and that was a fun one. Kevin's directing that, and get to see him and meet him, and then just getting to meet. I've been lucky. I haven't worked on a lot of projects, but everything I've been on, all the big name actors were super, super cool and approachable, and we're just humans, And so, like, one day on set, me and Tim McGraw were sitting there in the chairs under the tent. He didn't have any scenes. Martin didn't need me for nothing. And we're sharing photos of our kids, and like, I'm showing him my boy, and he was talking about his daughters, and my younger brother went to Stanford, and one of his daughters went there. And so, like, just having conversations like you would with the guy at the coffee shop, but it was cool because never in 1,000 years I think I'd have a story like that to tell, and be talking to someone like him. And every day, hey, morning, Sam. Sam Elliott shows to say, hey, morning, Sam. Hey, morning, Steven. And so cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I mean, just the atmospheres on the sets that I've been on have been awesome. And that Horizon deal, that was my, I think third project I worked on. And so I'd kind of learned the ropes a little bit. So like on that one, there was a lot of guys who were background stunts like me, just riding. And they're real excited to like, oh man, I'm going to be in the front, and so everyone sees me. But what happens when you do that, if the camera sees you, you burn your face, and then they can't reuse you. So like when I was on Horizon for the first movie, I played a native from 3 different tribes, and because I knew to hide out in the back to where I'm far enough where the camera, no one can identify me. So they can like, hey, we're doing another scene with this tribe. Can you stay for another week? Heck yeah. So it's more money that I get to make, by not being greedy for the spotlight and just kind of hiding out. And, but that was a cool project. And the scenes that we shot, like it was incredible. Like in Horizon, like when the natives attack the town of Horizon, we filmed that for a week, and that was a night shoot in miserable cold. Because to make it look smoky, they had like these giant fog machines, basically like these giant tankers, and they had these hoses that were probably 1.5 feet in diameter, and I mean hundreds of feet long, and just putting out mist. So it was cold in the desert, and then they're just putting that humidity in the air. So and I felt bad. Some of them guys, for their costumes, they were shirtless, and
Oh man.
and luckily I had a shirt and pants, so I had like 3 or 4 layers of long underwear underneath, and could stay warm and in between takes and whatnot. But like there was like 3 scenes that I was on where like there's some serious action, and so I'm real. And sometimes them directors, they're excited, and so if they're excited, it's good, and they're like, you guys come here, come check it out. And so they'd replay it on the monitors, and you'd get to see it. And so really excited to see Horizon. And when Bass Reeves come out, they didn't use a whole lot of footage from that fight of us when we come charging down the hill and attacked. But that was fun to shoot. Because you're going down that hill. It don't look like it, but we're going fast. And some of us are bareback, and you're jumping off your horse to go attack these guys. And, you've got some padding underneath your stuff, and we have rubber mallets, and we'd kind of rehearse, so you'd know, like, hey, you run to this guy, and and so you guys can fight, so you can hit each other, and I know he's got padding here or whatever, so I can sell the hit without actually hurting him. And that was so much fun. And I remember on the first take, we come charging down the hill, we bail off, and we go to fighting them guys, and I guess it was like 1.5 minutes of them yelling cut before we all stopped, because everyone's war whooping, and the Union guys are screaming, and like there's just so much commotion, and like you stop for a second and looked like it felt like I was actually fighting in that battle, 100 and whatever years ago. And so like, I don't know, I'm a kid at heart anyways, and so getting to be an adult and play pretend, like it's pretty dang cool, and I like it. It's a lot of fun. And even, on like Horizon, when I'm bareback loping through burning tents and different things, like it's cool, and you kind of get sucked into the moment, and it feels like you're actually there. But no, the movie deals, it's been a huge blessing, and just getting to meet people, and meet famous people, and but also just be part of it, and see how it's made, and yeah, it's been really neat.
Wow.
Well, you know, a lot of big stars have gotten their start as stuntmen. I don't know. You
Yeah.
seem pretty excited about it. You might be on your way. So
No,
you said you played like a few different tribes in one day. Did you learn anything through that process about native history that you didn't know? Because what goes into playing a native from different tribes? Is it like a costume change, or do you talk differently, or what goes into that?
so for me, I'm honestly like deep background. So when you see a fight scene, the main character, they're right there in the front of the camera, and then there's 100 people in the back. I'm person number 98, and so for me, not really. When I played, it was more or less just a costume change because I don't have any lines, and it's just, hey, you guys on horses, when on action, you ride from here to there while these guys are having a conversation. We're just kind of background stuff. Um, when I was on Bass Reeves, it was pretty cool though. There was a scene where they brought in Mo Brings Plenty, and he's talking to Bass, and there's three of us standing behind them talking. And anyways, one of the guys, I can't remember his name, but he was kind of a cultural advisor for the show. And he works for his tribe, but he's kind of a historian. And he was talking about, because I think he was Cherokee, um, and we were playing light horsemen, which were kind of like the native cops back in the day. Um, and it was interesting talking to him because I learned a lot just, from the couple hours on set for that day. He was talking about how important the light horsemen were to Bass Reeves. They knew the area because that was their homeland, and their tracking abilities and how much they helped them. And so on that day, I dang sure got to learn some, and which was a lot of fun. And when we did 1880, that was a Comanche camp, and Martin's character kills a buffalo, and he comes running into camp, and so you get to see the clothes they were wearing, and just for the time period, they had a lot of cotton and kind of linen stuff, but because it was far enough in history that by then the natives were starting to trade with the settlers. So instead of making their clothes out of leather, they were trading stuff for it. Yeah, we'll trade you this for that shirt, for these shirts or these, whatever. And so just getting to learn, and so I'm just circling back. Yeah, I did get to learn about some of these tribes, and pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's super fascinating. That's got to be such a cool experience, not only to be around those people, but to get to do that stunt stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would kill for that kind of opportunity. Something that we do kind of have in common, from that documentary that I saw you did with Ian. In there, you had done one of his early music videos, and I think you've done a few since. Well, a friend of ours down here, Billy Money, he did a music video, and me and my wife now we played him and his wife as the younger couple.
Oh,
So I was
okay.
like, oh, that's cool, and that's his first music video. So I got a little acting. I think maybe 100 or two people have seen it, so it's not real big. But was that the first time that you had been in front of the camera when you did that first music video with Ian?
Um, as far as like film, yeah. So my sister has a clothing company, and done some like more or less modeling for her when I was younger, and she's had some like big name photographers, you know, do some of her stuff, and have, and some like actual models, not just me. And so, but as far as film goes, yeah, that was the first time uh, being in front of that type of camera, and it was funny because is like awesome as the long haul video come out, it was like me, Ian, and his buddy Graywood. Like that was it. That was production.
Oh
It was
yeah,
just the three of us, and like we just like, oh, let's go here, Steve, and just go, they did a heck of a job, because it doesn't look like this super low budget. And but no, that was cool. And Ian, known the Munsick family for a really long time, and they're good friends, and proud to call Ian my friend, and he's one of them that as big as he's gotten, he's still a text me or shoot jabs at me in the comments on Instagram, and just playing around, being fun. And it's cool too, because like him and his wife Caroline have opened some doors for me, by letting me, like, hey Steve, we're doing this music video, would you be in it? Hey, would you want to be in the documentary too? And that's opened other doors. And so really, really thankful to them. And whenever I talk to them and thank them, they're more thankful to me, and like, thank you, Steve. Just down to earth. And it's just stuff you don't, in today's world, you don't see a whole lot. It's just really appreciated, and that there's at least one person in that industry, that's humbled still.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. So Ben and I, we went to the opening weekend of the NFR for Ben's bachelor party.
Okay, yeah.
A couple months ago, and we saw Ian because he ended up performing on the Friday night, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was fun to get to see him in person finally.
Yeah. So the Wednesday right before that, 2 days before that, is when we all got to when they had the premiere for the Voices of the West documentary. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So yeah, me and my dad flew down there, and for the premiere of that, and then we're gonna stay. We ended up staying an extra day because we were going to try and catch the first round of the rodeo. But then after everything that happened, we were like, and so we ended up coming home and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, the Munsicks, Ian and his wife and their son, like, they're awesome. And his parents, Dave and Trudy, and his brothers, like, they're awesome people. And, we're pretty lucky to have got to grow up around them.
Yeah, that's cool to hear. So a question I had for you on the stunt deal, because yeah, it sounds like you got to live like a little boy's dream, honestly, getting to do that stuff. Like, obviously there's all the Westerns, but I remember as a little kid, I think it was like the first time I watched Lord of the Rings, and it occurred to me, I was like, oh, they actually had to film this. And they had, however many horses and however many guys, like, charging it. And I was like, I bet it's just the biggest adrenaline rush to get to do that and film that. And obviously you'd been around horses a bunch, but was there any sort of learning curve in terms of, like, they have to teach you, like, oh yeah, best way to do it's jump off your horse this way or fall this way, or like, can you talk about that process a little bit, like your education process to prepare you to be a stuntman?
Yeah, for sure. So the first one I did, 1883, I didn't have to do any super big, no saddle falls or nothing. It more or less was just going really fast. But there was one scene where Martin's character is gifting this horse to Tim McGraw's character. And this horse was supposed to buck. And we got him saddled, and then I was supposed to get on him in the river. But like, one of the learning curves for that was like, you need to know where the cameras are. So when you're working with this horse, when I'm turning around, I know that camera's there. So I need to try and hide my face, because if I'm right squared up with the camera and they can see I'm not Martin, they can't use that shot because it's obviously not him. And so kind of understanding how to knowing where your cameras are and understanding angles. So that's a huge part. And then another thing that I learned, like, you need to watch the person who you're doubling. And there's a lot of really good stunt guys on there. And one guy, his name is Ryan Happy, like, really kind of took me under his wing and helped me out and gave me advice and tips. But he was, telling me, like, watch the guy you're doubling, because not just not letting the camera see your face, but also too, when you're filling in for him on the scene, you got to move like him. You need to ride like him. And because for me, I can tell when it's not, well, obviously I can tell when it's not Martin, but like, you watch them guys unless you can't tell that you think that's Tim McGraw all the way through. Cause like Ryan and all them guys, they watch them ride their horse and then they duplicate it with their body movement. If he rides this way, go straight back. When Happy gets on, he's doing that too, or whoever. And so that's a huge part of it. And then when we did Bass for that fight scene, there was a lot of action going on. And so was really working on saddle falls. So there's that Danny Edmo, who's been in the business for a long time, Gray Wolf Herrera, Rod Rondu. They were there and they were awesome because they were super encouraging. And I was really, just like I talk, like it's a job. There's 50 other guys here and I want to try and stand out so I can get hired again. When the next movie comes out, they need 10 guys. I want to make the roster. Well, man, that Steven, he's new to this, but man, he does a good job and he tries, he works hard and he's executing. And so, like working on saddle falls, it's not all about like, yeah, there's the curve. Like you got to know how to land so you can do multiple takes. Because if you just pile up, and then you're hurt, well, you can't do another take. And now production's going, well, now who are we going to use? He's the only guy that looks like him. You waste a day or you're wasting time because they're trying to get someone else, get your clothes off to put on another guy. So learning how to fall to protect yourself so you can do multiple takes of it. But one of the biggest things though, that like the coordinator stress, it's not so much the fall, it's selling the hit. So, it's like you're getting shot first. So you got to sell that, you getting shot. And what Danny was explaining to us is use that sell to help set up your fall. So if so here's my left shoulder and I'm going to fall off my horse on the left side, that's where you got to talk, and tell the actor like, hey, shoot at my left shoulder. That's where I'm going to take the hit. And, and depending, sometimes they squib you. They've got a deal on a remote and it'll pop and they'll have a blood packet. But a lot of times they'll just visual effects it in post-production. And so if I'm riding and then bang, I sell that hit on this shoulder and I use that momentum for as I'm coming down my horse's hip, that hit right there is going to help twist my body. So that way, when I land, I'm landing in a roll. And so I'm not just hitting and piling up and bouncing. I'm going to hit and roll on the ground because that's, then you're distributing the energy and the force. So that was another one of the things to learn, is like, sell the hit, sell the shot. That's the biggest thing. But then use that in a way to help set the rest of your body up so you can land properly to, keep yourself safe and not just get killed off, and because, for me, it's a supplemental deal and the movie deals pay phenomenal. I mean, one day is a week's worth of day wages cowboying. And depending on the stunt that you're doing, a lot of times you get adjustments. So like, hey, this was kind of you've got your daily rate, but you had to do a saddle fall, you're going to get X amount of dollars per fall additional, so if they want to film it 5 times, heck yeah, that's more money going into my pocket. And so that's where like kind of going back to where, it's competitive. Other guys are wanting that money too. So I got to work on my stuff. And so when we're rehearsing and practicing, yep, I'll do another one. I'll do another one. Yep, I'll do another one to show them like, look, I got it down. Or also too, that I'm willing to keep doing it. Because there are some guys that did one and they're like, no, I'm good. No, I'm good. So showing your boss, like, yeah, man, I'm willing to put in the hours, put in the reps, so when it's game time, I'm ready to go. And then the other thing, we did a lot of like hand-to-hand combat. And so that's another deal of figuring out, where it's important to know where your cameras are. So looking at you guys, if that's the movie camera, if someone's in front of me and I swing, I can make it look like I'm punching him. But if the camera's there and this person's here and I do this, you can see there's a gap,
Yeah.
and I didn't actually hit him. And so understanding that, and then the other thing too is like on them fights is you kind of got to slow down actually, because when you're playing pretend, it's your adrenaline's up and you want to make it look like you're intense and whatever, and you speed up. But just with them cameras, a lot of times it doesn't look as good, or it doesn't pick it up. So you kind of have to like slow. You're fighting at 80%. But same deal, when you get hit, you really got to sell the hit. And like Danny said, he's like, we're actors too. We're not rehearsing lines, but we got to sell this stuff. This is where we do our acting, is selling the action. So we did a lot of rehearsal with hand-to-hand combat, and then also too, like rehearsing, kind of choreographing your fight and keeping it simple, 3 or 4 beats, punch, duck, he kicks you, boom, that's the end of it. And then you're down, and, and using different weapons. The horse stuff was fun. The saddle falls, like when we were like practicing on the mats, that was more scary. 'Cause you're more worried about landing on the mat. So you're like stretching way out, trying to make sure you land on it. But when we were rehearsing and when I was going at speed, it was way easier. And like, there's dang sure, like, it's a weird feeling to throw yourself on the back of your horse's, by his tail head purposely to fall off, because we spend our whole life trying to stay on. But also too, I've come off enough horses where you kind of instinctively kind of try and land in a way to keep yourself safe, or be able to roll out of it. Or, sometimes a horse goes to bucking and he's got you. It's like, if I keep trying to fight him, he's really going to hurt me. I need to just abandon ship, make sure I get my foot out of the stirrup. So I'm just going to land and, I can get back up and go get him caught. And so that helps some too. The dismounts are a lot of fun. Like the scissoring off, where you swing your bareback and you swing the leg over the horse's neck while they're running, and you land and run and go to fighting. Like those ones, like when you get in time with your horse, and that, for me, that's what I found. It's all, and that just takes skills from riding, just like you're posting at a trot or a canter, being able to get in time with your horse and time it so when he's going up, you're using his momentum to help swing your leg over his neck, land on your feet, and then go fight. That stuff, it's fun. And just like you were talking about from Lord of the Rings, it was like the first day we got there, and it was just the natives, and we were kind of picking out our horses, and we got our horses picked up, and Danny wanted to have us practicing a charge. So we all lined up, abreast, and he's like, so when I I'll yell at you guys, and we're all going to walk, and then we'll trot, and then we'll lope, and then you guys run. And so it was cool. Like, there was 50 of us all in a straight line and just all out running through this hayfield there. And I mean, we were all in our everyday clothes, for that, but still, like, it was cool. And there's one of my favorite movies is Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman. You guys ever seen
that's the funniest movie ever.
He has a quote on there where he says, I wasn't just playing Indian, I was living Indian. And even though I've been an Indian my whole life, getting to go to them on them shows and get to do that stuff, like, it's cool, because like it was really cool. And I remember getting kind of emotional when we when we were doing 1883. There was Martin, who played Sam, and then there was David Midthunder, who played, I think his name was Two Feathers, and he rode a gray horse. And my buddy Doug Fitzgerald was his double. Doug, he's Blackfeet, and he's pretty traditional. And it was the day we filmed the scene where we were chasing them buffalo, and we got done, and while I was doing it, it was really cool. And I remember one of the takes. Luckily, it was the last take, and it was just kind of just for funsies, I feel like, anyways. But chase after this buffalo, and the horse I'm riding, Nick, I think she was like a cutter reject. And anyways, this last buffalo that they let out wouldn't just run; it kept wanting to like kind of stop. And that horse is so rady, that horse would stop, or the buffalo would stop, so would she. And she had a big old stop on her. And anyways, I kind of got behind that buffalo and really got to get him some speed. And then they called out like, now stop your horse really hard. And it timed out just right, because that buffalo petered out. And then I just picked up on her. And I mean, she put a set of 11s in the dirt. And I mean, just dust is flying up. But for me as a native, and my people, we hunted buffalo. It was just a cool feeling. And I remember like letting out a war whoop, but I was like, that one was me. That was my excitement, my real life, but anyways, when we were done, we wrapped for the day, and we're walking back to the vans to haul us back to base camp. Doug was talking, and he's like how powerful today was and how cool it was. And he's like, you could feel the energy. And he's like, even that, he's like, Mother Earth's happy, because that's the first time her people have chased the buffalo in, hundreds of years. And I got to thinking about that. And I was like, when's the last time the natives got to hunt buffalo like this, And granted, we're not shooting anything and actually killing anything, but I got to chase it like I was. And so it was a cool moment, and brought, a moment brought to me through film, where if it wasn't for that show, I never would have got to experience that. And that's the closest I'll ever get to experience hunting buffalo that way. But, and that's probably the closest natives are going to get to hunting buffalo that way for a long time, you know what I mean? And so it was cool, and it was a real powerful moment for me. And after he said that, just kind of the impact and the weight of what he said, and just kind of through history and whatever, and like it was cool. And like I said, at the time, I got kind of emotional about it, but it was neat.
Wow, that is pretty powerful. How do they do a scene like that with the buffalo? Because if I recall correctly, don't you in the movie they shoot some buffalo, right? So the ones that go down, is that all CGI, or do they have some trained buffalo on set?
When we're all done with this, I'll send you guys some videos, some behind the scenes of it. So they had I can't remember, there was 11 or 12 of them buffalo, and they had some cowboys. They had them wranglers there, a lot of them Sixes guys, Buster Frierson, just kind of chasing them around. And they'd kind of get them back off, and them cameras would really zoom in. And so they're not in frame. And then the scenes where we're chasing them, they had a horse trailer and then some panels kind of making an alley. And they had me and Whitley, who was Elsa's double, get on either side of them panels. So they'd let them buffalo out of the trailer, and they'd run down that alley to kind of get them in a straight line. And then they'd have it pointed right towards the rest. So there'd be 7 of them buffalo in that herd, and then they'd have 4 of them in the trailer, so we could do 4 takes. So, buffalo being a herd animal, and they see us running behind them, they're looking for the herd safety, so they were able to line it up. And then just with visual effects, they painted out the horse trailer and the panels. Because when we watched it, when I got to see it on TV, what we filmed, I was telling my family, I was like, oh, right there's where the pickup and trailer was in them panels, but they painted it out. And then when they're running, when it's the actors doing it, they have a big kind of puppet on some tracks, and it's hooked up to a crane. So when they say action, it'll pull that buffalo and it'll go down them tracks. And if I remember, I think on that there's guys on the front of it that will kind of have a lever to kind of rock it so it makes it look like it's moving and running. And
Oh,
then they can
wow.
cameras on the actors, so Elsa can lope up alongside this puppet and then shoot it. And I don't think she had bullets or blanks that day. I think she is just selling the shot, and then visual effects
Yeah.
made it look. And then as far as the buffalo hitting the ground, they had another puppet, and they put that camera real low on the ground, and then 3 or 4 guys would pick up that big dummy, and then they'd throw it into the dirt in front of that camera to make it look like it had died, hit the ground, and slid.
Wow. That's pretty wild.
So yeah, like that is kind of cool to see some movie magic and how they
Yeah.
piece it together,
Pretty technical deal.
Yeah.
So throughout this process, when you're doing the horse stunts, are you allowed to ride your own horses, or are you only riding horses provided by the movie company?
Just the ones they provide, and that's the thing that's nice about doing the Taylor Sheridan films is he brings his horses, and so a lot of times you're riding his stuff, and they are nice. I mean,
Yeah.
you're riding cutters, reiners, working cow horses, and so yeah, I have no problem riding his stuff at all. And that's the other thing too. Like for that horse Nick, I think like them, just like the actors have doubles, a lot of times them horses have doubles. So before they go into production, they're making sure they have the right horse for that will keep the actor safe. And then they got to go and find okay, we got to find a double for this horse, because sometimes them horses have a bad day on set, or you're doing them action scenes where you got to run. That one horse can't just make run after run because he's going to get hot and sour, and so production, and that's where them wranglers, that's their job too. A lot of the wranglers, they're providing the horses for them movies. And like on Horizon, a lot of the horses come from, I think it was this lady and her husband is it the Sun Ranch or something? They provided, I think they're kind of a dude outfit. They provided a lot of horses. And then there's a lot of them guys that's been their career, is being a Hollywood wrangler. And so they've got 20, 30 head of horses that's them horses' jobs is to work on movies. And, this one's good for a good stunt horse. You can fall off of him, because some of them horses, you go to falling off them, they'll kick you.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought. Yeah, you're trusting someone else's horse.
Yeah, and so we've been lucky. Everything I've done has been real big budget, so they have some of the best wranglers in the business. That the horses they're bringing, they're tested, and it's yeah, these horses are going to let you do your job. And because that's the thing, if you have a horse that's a piss head messing it up, then they're cut. Hold on, hey, get him, and then it's slowing everything down, So it's important on their job to make sure they're bringing the right horse flesh. And depending on where you go, in the budgets of the film, not every horse is going to be nice, but luckily everything that I've been on has been awesome.
Yeah. Well, so you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but did you feel more endangered around the Taylor Sheridan movie crowd, or did you feel more endangered around the Ultimate Cowboy Showdown?
Probably Cowboy Showdown.
Get rim fired, or
yeah,
something like that.
And that's the other thing. Like all them stunt guys, they're all bull riders, bronc riders. They come from a ranching background. They team rope. On the Cowboy Showdown, everyone thought they were John Wayne, and a lot of them weren't. And I don't think, I was never in any wrecks. And but there's a couple people that it's man, I don't know if I'd want to be in the branding pen same time as you.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
I was watching a little video on Taylor Sheridan's cowboy camp that he does for the actors. Did you ever go to that? Seems like they do a pretty good job. I mean, sounds like you don't have a lot of outside movie experience from that to compare it to, but that's probably a great set to work on, much in part to that, how they get all the actors together and have them ride and have them push cows and get them really assimilated into the cowboy culture before they turn them loose.
Well, and I think it's smart too, and he explains it or why he does it. It's like, all right, if she's going to drive a this character's going to drive a wagon. We need to teach her how to drive a wagon. And so how do you do that? Well, you got to get hours on the seat, you got to just go do it and set them up for success, make sure you got the right team and, hey, yep, our other guy's going to be with you, but you got to do it. So when it comes film time, it looks natural. Because how many movies have we seen where, it's a Western and they got to ride and you can tell that guy doesn't ride.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And probably seen some of that on Cowboy Showdown. And
You know what makes me really laugh is it's Kevin Costner in one of his early westerns. That last scene of what's that movie with him when he's a young kid? Joe, do you know what I'm talking about?
Dances with Wolves?
No, before that. He's a young kid and he's mixed up with these gamblers and they get in jail and they bust their buddy out. What is that movie? It's Silverado. Is it Silverado? Have you guys seen that? You'd have to look it up. But there's a movie. Kevin's got to be. I want to say he's 20. Maybe he's older. But when someone's young and they're really young and you can tell, he's got to be 19 or 20. And the end of the movie, they're riding off into the sunset, and the other two guys are riding all right. And Kevin's actually on the horse, and he is bouncing up and down just like a big old sack of, packing peanuts. So. Mm-hmm. So he's clearly come a long way.
Yeah. I never seen him ride. He was our stuff. It was always the native scenes, of course, and he was just directing. But yeah, he's dang sure come a long way. And it was pretty cool. And I was around Kevin for 3 weeks, and always composed, always polite and kind, and because he's one of them, wherever he goes, everyone's just mobbing him. Can I get a picture? Can I get an autograph? And even on set, the extras are doing that. It's like, hey, we're working, but he, instead of, he'd be like, okay, yes, ma'am, we can do one. Okay, thank you. I apologize. I got to get back to work now. And, he was always very gracious. And we did a scene. A camp gets attacked and we're leaving, and there's 15 riders. We don't know it's getting attacked, but anyways, I think we were kind of just riding too fast, and it was one of them deals. You kind of caught up in the moment. You're in the costume. You're outside of Moab, Utah, in the desert, and you feel like you're that tribe. You feel like you're living in that time. And I think we were going faster than what they wanted. It was like the first take, and this was kind of cool. Kevin, instead of cut, and then instead of coming up and chewing our ass and, hey, you guys need to slow down, he's had us kind of, hey, you guys gather around here, and some of us got off our horses, some of us stayed on. But he's like, so back in 19 whatever, when we were filming Dances with Wolves, we did that scene with the buffalo hunt scene. And we had a lot of really talented Native American stuntmen, a lot of guys who had never been stuntmen before, and a lot of bull riders. But anyways, on the very first take, of chasing them buffalo, all them guys, they're war hooping, they're chasing stuff. And then when we cut, he's like, none of you guys shot your bows. None of you guys shot anything. That's what you're supposed to be doing is, you're hunting these buffalo. But them just kind of similar to the moment I had on 1883 chasing the buffalo. For them, it was like, this is the first time natives have got to chase buffalo in hundreds of years. and they were just got wrapped up in the moment themselves. And so he said, I told them guys, we'll do one more take, and that's for you guys. You guys do whatever you want. You run in the herd, you sort one out, whatever, but that's for you and your people and your heritage. And then the next one, let's make a movie. So he said, we did one more take for them guys. Then after that, every time them guys would come back from a take, every single one of them would be out of arrows. And they had someone there that make arrows and just had a table, and they'd just go and shove arrows into quivers, go reset, and then they'd go, and then them guys were shooting them prop arrows, but it was cool. Like, and he would like inspire you, and and like that, like most of us were all new to the movie world. A lot of them guys, almost all of them were first, it was their first movie, and so they don't know, and they're excited too. But it was just his approach, instead of getting after people or scolding. And, he told a story, and he's like, and he said, we'll do one more take for you guys. And then, then after that, be this person, be this tribe. And so then it made you focused. And then, then you did we're just background writers, but then we did become actors, and so that was pretty cool. You could take just a bunch of yo-yos off the reservation and turn us into background actors.
Huh. Yeah, that's solid leadership. That's really cool that he did that. Yeah, man, that might be the take, Joe. Like when we have somebody in the branding pen and they're getting kind of Western, and you're like, man, how are we gonna? That guy's just too fast, and he's riling all the cattle up. You might have to be like, hey, man, I know you're trying to be like Roy Rogers and stuff, so you go 2 more times and you just be you, and then after that, let's brand cows.
Yeah,
could work.
Could be,
because most of the time that it's exactly what you just said, Stephen. You get caught up in the moment, you're excited, and it's fun to chase stuff on a horse, even when you're supposed to be being peaceful, branding calves. Yeah, man, that's a cool story. So I think probably one of my final questions for you would be, did you ever sustain any serious injuries throughout this stunt career of yours so far?
I never have, and I've only worked on 3 projects, and I'm more aspiring stuntman than a proven one, and nothing yet. But like I said, I've barely gotten my feet wet, and haven't been in a situation where I've had to do something real serious. And like, we were practicing for them saddle falls, but just on bass, we were practicing for them saddle falls, and there's me and like there's supposed to be like a dozen of us that come off, because as we come down the hill and come at them soldiers, they turn and shoot at us, and those of us in the front would come off. But then they got to talking about it, and like, well, it's not really safe, because if you guys get shot and come off, there's 40 horses coming full blast behind you. And when they're coming mock chicken, there's a horse in front of them. It's going to be hard to see you and move around you. So they changed it to where they just had like a couple guys come off. And when we come down the hill and kind of start to bank towards the soldiers, a couple guys on the outside come off. So then they roll out of frame and roll out of the charge, and but it was kind of funny. They're like, hey, we need some of you guys to ride your horse in the middle of all them infantrymen and get pulled off. And we had been practicing that too. And I was on an old calf horse, and I said, my horse is gentle enough, I bet he'd ride up in there. And so in between the take, I looked at they had me, another stunt guy. They're like, hey, Steven, come to me. I'll be right over here by the cannon. So right over here to me, and then I'll be the one to pull you off. Okay, sounds good. And so for that day with my costume, my hair wasn't braided. It was just loose. And so anyways, that first take, come charging down the hill. I find my guy. I run to him. And so I run up in the middle of all the soldiers, run to my guy. And when he runs to grab me, my horse spooked. And when that horse spooked, my hair kind of flowed towards him. And so he's trying to grab me, and he just grabbed a handful of my hair and just yanked me down by my head. And I mean, I hit so hard, but you're
Oof.
filming, you just had to just got up, seeing stars, and just go to fighting. And we had to deal with hand to hand combat sequence there. But no, it was fun.
Now, tell me they kept that scene in the show.
No, I don't think they used it. And for what we filmed and what they aired, what they aired was super brief, and which I was pretty bummed out about because there was some kind of cool action in there. And I know on one take, because the scene's written that we just obliterate the Union and all us Indian riders. And on one of them takes, I stood up on one of their cannons or howitzers or whatever, and I've got one of their rifles or something, and I'm standing up with my hand or that rifle in the air. And I was hoping that would make it. That'd be a cool profile picture, but that's all right.
So, have you ever had to shoot a bow, or do they have guys for that?
Yep. Nope. Did some bow shooting on Horizon, and
Okay. I bet that was fun to play with too.
yeah. And for this scene, it was kind of they had the arrow, and it's a fake arrow, fake tape, but they had it tied to the string so I could pull it back and let go, but it doesn't actually leave. And then the rest of the takes, we did several takes with that. Then the rest of the takes, they just had me kind of dummy it, so it made it look like I drew one out. There's nothing in my hand, and I draw in dry fire, and then they can VFX it later on.
I feel like I'm gonna be looking so much closer at any horse native action scene I see now.
Yeah.
After I hear all the background stuff.
Man, and I don't know if you guys been around natives a whole lot, but Indians are funny, man. Their sense of humor. And buddy of ours, I won't say names, but we're doing this scene on Horizon, and we've done so many takes, and we've been night shooting for a week straight. We're tired and cold and ready to go home, and we are they're filming on the complete other end of town. And for this particular one, there's a couple of us they didn't need, and so we stayed on set but just hid behind a tent, a burning tent. So we're just not in frame. And anyways, this guy, and he's kind of one of the group kind of class clown type guys. So there's Indians, and then there's the settlers, and the Indians are killing the settlers of this town. And anyways, they say action, and he's chasing the settler, and he's got a knife in his hand chasing after him. They disappear into a tent, and then they come out, and the native guy, he's running with his hands in the air, and then the settler has the knife. And it was just goofy, slapstick, which I'm sure even if it did make the cut, they didn't notice it. It'd be far enough way in the back that you might not even get to see it. But gosh dang, just I don't know. It was funny, just some of the shenanigans.
Yeah, come to think of it, I've got a good friend in Whitefish, and he's got friends, I think they're Blackfeet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that would be right. Okay. And one of his buddies from the Blackfoot Reservation worked on Horizon. So you might even know him. I don't know the guy's name, though. I'd have to get it. My friend's name is Alex, but it's one of his friends.
Okay.
But I was talking to him the other day, and he was lamenting that because he's not a native, and he works part-time as a plumber to build his ranch that he hopes to get. And he's like, dang it, I wish I was a native too, because my buddy's making all this money working on the Horizon movie. And I keep telling them hey, I'll do whatever you want. I'll wear a face mask. I'll do a tan and change my hair color. I just want to make some money, get on that set. But
well, in that movie, they have a lot of need. There's a lot of cavalry guys they need, and so there's been a lot of just cowboys who've been able to go and get in it to just put on a wool cavalry uniform and just ride a horse in formation and make the same amount of money.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'll tell him that. Maybe he didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
That's it is cool how you think about, at least for me, maybe it's a like personal problem, but like you think about like ranching and ag and cowboys and stuff like that, and it's almost on the other end of the spectrum from what you might think of as like the movie business, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously there's that overlap where you're doing period pieces or whatever that's involving animals and horses, and all of a sudden, like they need guys with that skill set,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's not. I'm sure there are people in LA that can ride, but that's not something you just go down the road and find. Like you probably could for a lot of projects in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to hear you talk about this stuff, because for me, it's like another way that skill set is valued, as opposed to just being like a good hand on a ranch or getting a horse really broke for somebody in town or something like that.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I lucked out to just be living in the right time where, they're kind of the Westerns are making a comeback. And, and like you said, just getting to just from a lifetime of riding horses, and just was able to apply it to something else. And, like I said, I'm lucky. Like them movies, like 1883 kept me in the cow business. That was the first year of that drought. And that's when like hay was like $400 a ton, like $350, $400 a ton. And by the time you pay that to feed your cows through the winter, it's like you didn't make any money on your calf. You had so much expense into feeding his mom that when you go to sell the baby, so it's like it makes no sense to buy the hay, and it's like, well, I'll just sell the cow. And we were kind of having a serious debate on downsizing, and then that movie come up, and and it we found some hay that wasn't that expensive, and well, my dad had ended up selling his cows, and I had bought all his hay. And him being a dad, he gave me a good deal on it. And but the 1883 is what paid for all of it. And if it wasn't for that TV show, we wouldn't have sold out completely, but we'd have had to significantly decrease our numbers, and it put a setback on growing, but no, luckily, and now, last year was tough because everyone was on strike, so no one was making movies. And so just kind of talking about earlier, I was kind of getting dependent on them movies, and it didn't pan out with, Hollywood being on strike, but, we sold another horse, and, and that was the income we needed, and so, like I said, just kind of that going back to being able to diversify and having options and different avenues of income streams,
Yeah. Because it works out, you're talking about them being on strike, but then that's going on the same time you're having a really good wet summer, right?
Yeah.
So it's just kind of an ebb and flow of things.
Yeah, exactly. And luckily, they went on strike. But last year calves were record high, and so we did okay without it. And one of these times, it'll line up where calves are priced good, and we'll get the extra stuff so we can maybe get ahead on some things instead of just always playing catch up.
Yeah, no doubt.
Sure. Well, I gotta say, we're gonna wrap up here soon because I know you got other stuff to do today. But overall, man, one thing I picked up from this conversation, it sounds like you've got a pretty remarkable family, because we're just talking about you and all these cool projects that you've done, and then honestly going back and starting this ranch yourself. That's really cool to me. But you said you have a sister with a clothing line, and then you have a brother that went to Stanford.
Yep.
And that, to me, I don't know. I don't necessarily have negative connotations. But if someone said, hey, here's this guy who grew up on the Crow Reservation in Montana, you wouldn't think of like the family having those kind of career paths or like having done those things. So it's really cool to hear you talk about all that stuff, because it seems like, well, I don't know you that well, but it seems like your parents have done a pretty good job along the way. And it sounds like you got a supportive dad. So I just wanted to make note of that. Like, seems like they've done a good job, man.
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm very fortunate to have grown up with both my parents, and that always had the best interests of us kids at heart. And and the big reason my parents pushed us to go to college is because they didn't want us to ranch, just because of they're like, you don't know if it's going to drought. You don't know. Just there's so many things you're unsure of. Just, and Dad says it's one of the biggest gambles. You don't know if you're going to get rain. You don't know if the grasshoppers are going to come and wipe out your hay crop, if some virus is going to come into your calves or your cows and they're going to abort calves, or if the market tanks. It's hot in this, and he's like, get a job to where and it is just him trying to protect us. He knows the hardships of ranching. And it's just, you absolutely got to want to do it, and to go through, and that's the thing. There's a lot of stuff that's tough, but it's the little things that keep you hooked. Like getting to rope and branding season, and getting to ride your colts, and springtime, seeing them baby calves. When they're a couple weeks old and they're in them little groups and they're running and bucking with their tails in the air. It's the little stuff that makes your heart smile. But no, I had two, and I had an awesome mother. Lucky to still have them both. And I've got my oldest sister, Jamie. She's in her last year at Ann Arbor, Michigan, getting her doctorate in psychology, and had good, and that's the other thing, just my siblings, we fight like just everyone's siblings do, but we all kind of supported each other, and have that ranching background, that even though I'm the only one that stuck around in the ranch, we still had that work ethic and, the different values you learn at the ranch that makes you a valuable employee no matter what field you go into. So coming from a ranch, and having chores and, that type of stuff really helped my siblings with all their things. But no, well, you ask any one of us, we attribute it to our parents. We had some good guidance growing up. So,
yeah. Well, yeah. Talking to you and just hearing you talk about your life and your everything you've done, you can tell, man. So
yeah, appreciate it.
They've done a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much too for taking time out of your schedule to hang out with us. Earlier in the podcast, you said you love to learn. Well, Joe and I, we love to learn too. That's why we started doing this, because it gives us an opportunity not only to make new friends and meet the people that we see doing cool stuff, that we're like, hey, we want to meet that guy. We'll just figure out how to meet him. But most of all, we get to learn, and everyone else gets to learn too. And I know I certainly picked up a bunch listening to you. So thanks so much for your time. We appreciate that.
Thank you guys for reaching out and thinking of me. And, it's just one of the things I found was just how important networking and connections are, and meeting people, and not just for personal benefit, but it's cool to get to meet people and have a conversation. I think that just the actual skill of having a conversation, I think, is something that a lot of people in the younger generation don't have. And for me, that's one of the things I enjoy, is going places and getting to sit down and meet a stranger, and what do you do, and getting to learn about people and hearing cool stories. And so it was a pleasure getting to talk with you guys and bounce ideas off you and different things. But yeah, no, I'm very appreciative, and I'm thankful for you guys thinking of me and allowing me to come on here.
You bet.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, we're going to hit hang up. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
That way this thing uploads.